A Dictionary of Blackfoot Metaphysics. In other words, the deep meaning, the science contained in the language when you go and speak the language and think in it. Bi is energy, and all of existence is about energy. All of this metaphysics, the deep meaning of the language Blackfoot, results and is an articulation of how energy, sacred energy, manifests in life so that we as humans can articulate and relate to that life. Umokshti, curvatures, are examples of energy forces out there coming together, manifesting in such a way so that human undertaking can understand and be able to articulate those manifestations of the different energy forces. Natusi is sacred energy, an example of umokshti, akshti, the curvature of the energy forces. The beginning of all existence really comes from the cosmos, really comes from the sun, our nearest star. Our stories about energy really comes from the sky. That is why our creation stories speak to the fact that we are sky people, because that energy from the cosmos has resulted in our coming into existence. Natusi, along with Napi, bring about other manifestations of all existence. All of that existence is energy. Out of those energy forces, Napi, the trickster, manifests as a type of energy force. Napi, the trickster, is an example of all those energy forces, but manifesting in such a way for human comprehension, human understanding. Napi puts things into the explanatory articulation of what we see, what we hear, what we smell and taste and touch. In other words, physicality. In other words, such as Ksachku, the earth. Ksachku is when we actually touch the earth with our feet. flowers manifest from the ground. Bisatsaski refers to the face coming out of the ground, just like Mistiks, the trees. The deep meaning of Bisatsaski is the showing of the face out of the earth. In other words, those energy forces coming out of the earth are meeting other energy forces, resulting in a manifestation of different energy forces. Powahssin is a place where we get sustenance so that we can continue our life. Sustenance so that we would be able to be fed by all those plants, that growth that comes out of the earth. Kitawahssin none, Powahssin. Powahssin, the deep meaning, is where we get our sustenance from a territory, a habitat, an environmental and ecological totality that we refer to as Niitsipowahssin. In other words, hey, we're coming to life. It's as though a whirlwind occurs, and that whirlwind of energy brings about life, us standing up, just like Napi is a physical manifestation of the energy forces. And we see Napi standing up, moving around. We come to see some of that creation in geoforms like mountains, and consequently those mountains are our sacred beings. They are part of us, just like Dinastako, Chief Mountain. It is a place of sacred energy. Sacred places, such as Dinastako, are very important for the continuity of Blackfoot ways. Dinastako is a manifestation of different forces coming together as a physicality with which we connect. So we become one with a very sacred site for Blackfoot people. Blackfoot Metaphysics is a repository of descriptions of different types of movements, motions, actions. Blackfoot language is not about nouns. What Blackfoot language attempts to manifest is all that movement of energy forces coming out. The humans, hey, they were crossing a big wide river in the spring, and the ice gave way, and half of the population went into the water. And so half of our people are now water beings, just like the buffalo are now part of the land beings. Inim is the Blackfoot word for buffalo. The story is that the buffalo came out of the water. The buffalo used to be a water being, and it used to come out of the water to hunt animals, including humans. But the humans and the buffalo got together and entered into an agreement that they would not hunt humans anymore. But to make sure that both sides kept their word, the buffalo wanted half of the human population, and in exchange would give half of its buffalo population. So what we see out on the land is that half of the buffalo population. And so buffalo, for instance, manifests in words such as a tongue twister that describes the clicking of the hoofs of the buffalo coming towards you. Other manifestations of action, motion, processes result in the naming of other beings, such as the spider. In Blackfoot, the spider is Xiuhwawakasi. Xiuhwawakasi is not a name. It's a description of the motion that a spider makes as it walks or runs, a going back and forth motion. That description also extends to awakasi. Awakasi speaks to the description of the motion of the deer and antelopes when they're going across the plains. It's not a name in the Western sense of the word, but a description of the motions they make. So when we're talking Blackfoot metaphysics, Blackfoot metaphysics really is a repository of those motions, energy forces coming together and making sound. So the language itself is a sounding of energy forces, especially the curved energy forces, resulting in vibration, and that vibration in turn resulting in sound that humans can actually hear. When two curvatures come together, they produce sound. The Blackfoot word that describes a rattle is awanan. You will see that the very first part, awa, is similar to awakasi, like the deer, while the rattle is something also that you use to make motion and results in sound. And that sound is, I would say, the best we could do to capture the sound of those stars coming together. It's that powerful spirit we now take and embody. It becomes part of us. Awanan is a sacred example of all that energy force that comes to us from the sky. When you shake that rattle, it's like the coming together of all the stars through their energy forces and captured within that rattle container. And that rattle container and the sound that comes from it when you shake it, especially in a rhythmic manner, hey, it begins to bring closer and closer to us all those stars out there. In other words, those stars become our spiritual relatives. I would like to honor our relatives from the sky, those spirits that are visiting us through the rattles that we produce. It's a song to those stars that we see out there on a clear night. Oh, kakatu 6.